Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In podcast. In the last episode, we talked about proprioception, which is the sensory system that gives the brain information from the muscles and joints, and often provides the most calming and organizing input for the nervous system. We explored why so many children seek movement through climbing and pushing and jumping and crashing, and how those behaviors are often the body's way of regulating itself. Today, we're going to take that one step further. Because once we understand sensory needs, the next question becomes, how do we design our homes so that those needs can actually be met? If you've ever found yourself saying no more than you'd like, or wondering how to support your child's movement and sensory needs without turning your home upside down, this episode is for you. Today, we're looking at the environments our kids live and learn in, and why the way you arrange your home matters just as much as the curriculum that you choose. Homeschooling gives families a unique opportunity to shape spaces that support the nervous system, but it can also feel overwhelming to know where to start and how not to spend a gazillion dollars. It's not just about adding equipment or activities. Often, it's about noticing how your space either helps your child's body and brain work together or puts them into constant conflict. Now, before we jump in, I want to thank Love Every, the title sponsor of the OT is In podcast. As an occupational therapist, I'm always looking at how environments and materials support development. One of the things I appreciate about Love Every is that their play kits are intentionally designed to support sensory exploration, motor development, and problem solving at each stage of childhood. The materials invite children to push, pull, stack, carry, and explore exactly the kinds of experiences that help the nervous system develop and organize. Now, you will hear more from them in the middle of our episode. And if this topic of sensory processing is something that you want to understand more, I recommend downloading my guide, What is Sensory Processing, from my website. It walks through the sensory systems and helps you start recognizing how they show up in your child's daily life. It's a great next step if today's conversation sparks your curiosity. Now, today I'm joined by Alexi from Sensational Spaces, and her work focuses on helping families design homes that support sensory processing, movement, and regulation while still functioning as real living spaces. In this conversation, we get practical about how to set up your home to lower friction, say yes more often, and support everyone's needs, including your own, without sacrificing function or aesthetics. Let's jump in. I'm excited to share another resource for the homeschool community. This is an amazing success story from our sponsor, Learning RX Brain Training Centers. Here's what Lynn from Glendale, Arizona said about her daughter's experience at Learning RX. My child is truly thriving. It has been one of the best decisions we've made for her education and confidence. The changes we've seen are undeniable. The testing showed significant, measurable improvement across every single area. As a parent, watching her transform has been priceless. I was especially concerned because I struggled in school myself and recognized some of the same early signs in her. That's why we chose to act early, and I'm so grateful we did. The program requires both time and financial commitment, and I understand how intimidating that can feel. But the results speak for themselves. It was absolutely worth it. My daughter now proudly tells people it made my brain feel a lot stronger. And honestly, that's exactly what we've seen. You guys, Learning RX targets the root cause of learning struggles, cognitive skills that need to be strengthened. Every client is different, and your child may or may not achieve the same results as Lynn's daughter. But connect with Learning RX to see if brain training would be a helpful next step for you and your child. Around the world, in their centers and remotely over Zoom, they've worked with more than 130,000 children and adults who struggled with thinking and with learning. So visit learningrx.com/homeschoolot to get special discounted pricing on the cognitive skills assessment and sign up to get additional information and free resources from the Learning RX homeschool support team. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is in. My name is Sarah Collins, and with me today I have Alexi from Sensational Spaces. Now, Alexi is part of a team, Alexi and Marley. Marley is not with us today, but these two and I have been on this journey around the same time we started, and we've collaborated through the years. And I really wanted to make sure that you knew of Sensational Spaces, but also got to hear their words of wisdom because these two are absolute experts in answering those questions that so many of you come to me with, like, how do I provide for my kids within my own home? And what do we do when it's really cold or it's really hot outside and my kids still have to fill these needs? Alexi, before we really dive in even more, can you tell me, yeah, who you are? Go a little bit more into your story and what brought you into this world.
Absolutely. First of all, Sarah, thank you so much for having us here today or having me here today on behalf of myself and Marley with Sensational Spaces. I'm one of the co-founders here and just are so excited to be here and to be able to share a little bit more about what we do and how we service those who we work with. We're occupational therapists by trade, and we met in grad school. We worked in clinical settings for a while in pediatric outpatient, hospital, you name it. We've worked with a whole host of settings, but really we saw a need when we were in the pediatric outpatient setting where we were constantly being asked by families, what can I buy for the house? Or
Yeah.
how can I create what you guys are doing here and bring it home? It's great that they're getting this input here, but they're only here for an hour. So how do we
Yeah.
transfer those skills? And so that was one of the questions that very frequently was brought up. And so that's how Sensational Spaces was born. We saw that need and we filled it. And now we're so blessed to say that we're in 20 states currently with a national Make-A-Wish partnership, being able to support with donation-based funds. And we also are actively working here in Minnesota and Wisconsin with county grant and waiver funding. We also do private pay too, but predominantly those are the funding streams that we're able to support families with to help get these types of tools and equipment in their homes without it being this whole cost prohibitive thing like a wedding, right? You put the word sensory in front of anything and the cost seems to really skyrocket, which is super unfortunate for families. So we want to help them meet these needs in a way that's within their budget.
I love this so much, how you can really see this need and then, yeah, you're jumping in, you're filling it. And you guys are really unique within our country, right? Is there anyone else doing what you're doing?
Not in the way that we're doing it. There are other people who are working with home modifications or who are OTs who are working to help families get coverage through like insurance and stuff.
Mhm.
But the way that we're working it is just a different angle in how we've been able to kind of support families in this unique way, and being able to build relationships with donation based entities has been a really big factor as well.
That is so cool. So let's share some of this wisdom that you've had from building all of
Yeah.
this. Now, if people are coming in and they're saying, well, how do I help my kids when it is cold, when it is hot, when they're trying to build this proprioceptive input? Now, let me just back up for 1 second. If that term is new, the last episode was completely all on proprioception. What is it? How do we help our kids? How do we support it? All of that. So now we want to dive in a little bit more to the more practicality, especially within our homes, right? So, can you tell me what do you think of first? Like when you are walking right into a space, What helps you to notice, yeah, a kiddo would be supported here, or no, we're actually working against what they need?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Before we go into any space, we do a whole sensory motor intake. So we have a good general idea on if a kiddo is seeking proprioceptive input or vestibular input. We have a good general framework, at least, for what they're seeking and what they're avoiding. So we know what to look for when we even walk in the door. And usually it's within the first couple minutes we can tell if those sensory needs are being met in a way that is purposeful and intentional, or if there's different environmental modifications that need to happen. So when we walk in, if somebody is a proprioceptive seeker, like they're the kiddos who are jumping off the couches or climbing on the kitchen counters, those kinds of more jumping, climbing, crashing
Yeah.
kind of movement, what we're looking for is, do they have a clear pathway to be able to run? Do they have soft places to land? And are they able to get movement that seems purposeful and intentional for their nervous systems, but also in a way that's really safe? So you can tell when a space is working against kiddos like this because there's tight layouts, there might be fragile, like kind of decor around the
Right.
house, or kids are they're creating their own heavy work and it starts to feel chaotic where it's pushing and throwing furniture, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So that's really kind of when we walk in, those are kind of the first things that we're looking to see if the space is working to support or if it's more inhibiting their sensory system needs.
It makes me laugh because when my son, when he was really little, I used to literally, when he would get out of his crib, I would take out the crib mattress too and move it all around, chase him almost,
Yeah.
because I needed a way to be able to say yes to him. If not, it was a continuous battle. And there were places like Thanksgiving, totally remember my or his grandparents, my in-laws, have this beautiful glass table, right? That I was like, this is a really bad idea. I had to figure out a way that he could be present at Thanksgiving with us and not in that area because there was just so many needs that he needed to fill. And I do love how you're saying like they're clearly showing what they need and they're trying to get those ways. How can we design our spaces to fit into that, right? All right. So for a lot of people who are saying, awesome, you come in and you look at my space and you're going to be like, oh, great. There's so many things that I need to do, or so many things that I need to buy, or so many things I need to get rid of. What does this actually look like in a house? Like with a parent who doesn't have you coming in and being like, hey, this is what you need to do. What can they look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So less about buying equipment and more about trying to shape that environment so it reduces the friction between the
Yeah.
caregiver and the kiddos. You really want to be able to create a space that you can say yes in, right? You
Hmm.
don't want to have to constantly, no one wants to constantly have to be stepping in or chasing their kid and saying no or don't do
Right.
that when it's something that their body's clearly telling them that they need. So you want to be able to have this when you're thinking sensory friendly design, it's creating a predictable flow, lowering visual noise, creating cozy corners, creating movement opportunities that naturally fit into your family's way of life. So whether that be it's it's creating a home that makes it feel like you can be yourself. Because at the end of the day, you
Love
want to
that.
be
Yeah.
comfortable in your home and create
Yeah.
an environment to shape that. So whether it be we've done something as small as a corner of a closet that's like a calming nook, and we've done
Hmm.
an entire unfinished basement. It really depends on the needs of that individual and just in the family. It's the whole family unit because it's not
Yeah.
just one person. There's a whole family living there. So it's figuring out what's going to be functional and really work for the whole unit.
This is really funny because just thinking back down to when we were going through all this with my son when he was really young, and his needs and my daughter's needs were so very different. Like even down to he's a kiddo that because of that need for proprioception, him coming down the stairs would sound like an elephant. Like he is stomping and running down and even first thing in the morning, that was so abrasive to her. And so we even worked on the order that they came down the stairs. Like no joke. He would come down first, she would stay in her room, and then she would come down because it was just one way to build in a routine that would help him and her to be able to fit within the same spot. So I'm so grateful that you're talking about we all want to be comfortable within our homes. Now, besides, okay, here's my rule of who has to come down the stairs first. Like, how do you look at this within the family unit versus just one kiddo?
Yeah, so this we very frequently work with siblings, very frequently, and it's funny that you say that your kiddos were so different in that
Yeah.
way because we
Hmm.
say that all the time, even about parents to kids, or it's like
Yeah.
one kiddo might be like super loud and really seeking that vocalization or whatever, it might be climbing on you. But as a parent, you might be a parent who's, oh my gosh, I'm like touched out. I don't want you to touch me right now.
Yeah. Like I would at some points be like, I feel like my skin is gonna fall off. Like
Literally
I
crawling
just
away.
can't.
Yes. So it's trying to figure out that balance. Is there a certain area that each person can feel comfortable and be themselves, or is there a way that we can morph the two together? So it gets extra tricky when it's two kids who share a room who have
Yeah.
differing needs. We just did a space like this here in the last month where it was trying to have that all come together. And so we literally put up like a Lego partition wall and had it where like
That's
each
fun.
had their own side of the room essentially, but it wasn't necessarily like totally breaking up the room. It was just giving them a little bit of those kind of those borders, right? Giving them a zone where they could truly be themselves.
Love it. Oh, wow. It makes me think of, I don't know, those episodes of a sitcom when they were together and they're like drawing tape across the center of the room.
Yep.
But you're saying you did it more functionally and aesthetically pleasing, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You could use tape if you really wanted to. And that's a budget-friendly way of doing it. We've
There you
seen
go.
that walking into homes where there's a tape border. And it's like, okay, here we go.
Okay. Yeah. How can we balance this like structure and boundaries and whatever and the freedom, right? Because if we want our kids to fulfill their own needs, we want them to be learning more about their bodies because the more that they're aware, the more they can then advocate later on. So within boundaries and the confines of our space, what are some ways that we can encourage that within our kids?
Good question. Good question. So sometimes we'll see it where it's, say it's a smaller home, right? In the
Hmm.
bedroom, there's not a lot of room in the bedroom other than for the bed, right? So we're
Yeah.
talking about looking at the main living spaces and outside, right? So you might have a trampoline outside, and we've done it before where it's like when you're looking at a main living space, it's not just thinking what's going to be kid friendly, it's thinking what's going to be very family friendly. And also what's going to be aesthetically pleasing to the whole family because it's literally smack in the middle of your living room. Do
Hmm.
this work where it doesn't feel super jarring to guests who come over or grandparents when they come.
Right, yeah, like I don't want a bunch of primary colors and
Me
jumping
either.
apparatus in
Me
my living
either.
room. That's not my jam.
Yeah. And so it's when we're looking at the environment, when we're really doing that assessment, we're looking to see even down to what colors are the parents
Mhm.
gravitating toward in the home, and then how can we bring those into the space so it also feels very cohesive. But so say we did it recently where we had the sectional and that was the divide.
Okay.
And then we had it where behind that we had a foam pit that we put in. And then there was a climbing wall, custom climbing structure that we did. It was beautiful and it like aesthetically it went with the rest of the living room. And then it was that the couch was that divide.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not going to go and put in all this big, fancy, expensive equipment, whatever, that's also totally fine. It's having furniture that's going to be functional for it, where it's okay, maybe your couch cushions come off and you can
Yeah.
throw them all in a big pile on the floor. And you know what? When you need to go jump and crash, you make that big pile, you jump and crash from the couch into those pillows. And then, like, when your body's feeling like it's done, you just need to make sure you put them back. It's just
Awesome.
finding different
Right.
ways to build it in, even if you're not physically building a new space within your space.
And I love that too because it does give somewhat of the boundary, but
Mhm.
also here's what you need. Awesome. Here's the way that you can take care of your family too. So take them off, jump on it, whatever, do your thing, and then put them back. I think a lot of times we're afraid to say, I want you to get what you need. I want you to be able to do that, but your needs are not the most important in the room, right? Everybody's needs have value. And it sounds like when you're saying this, you're putting up this divide and you're giving these like spaces, you're also giving the how can I advocate for yourself and be compassionate to other people.
And it's hard as a parent,
Hmm.
even I think about myself because my kids and we throw all of the pillows and everything in the middle, but you think about it before you had kids. Gosh, like this was our beautiful home and living room with our beautiful, lovely sectional that we
Oh,
purchased. All
yes.
these like it feels just like almost like a disruption a little,
Hmm.
or it feels wrong when you
Yeah.
first do it, right? The
Hmm.
more you do it, the more you're seeing that, gosh, my kid is so much more regulated after we do this.
Right.
I can handle the couch cushions all in disarray. I can
Hmm.
handle the blankets in a big pile and know that it can be put back. when you think about it, it's would I rather have that temporary disruption to what I find aesthetically pleasing, or would I rather have a dysregulated child? Personally, I tend to say I'd rather, you know what, we can put the house back together. But
Yeah. And
have
especially since these kids are the ones who are learning more. But and I'm not saying that we know everything about ourselves and that we're not a constant work in progress. But if we're trying to model and to teach, it is really important for us to say, you are safe here. This is your spot. This is what you need. And how are we going to do this together as a family to
sometimes
make sure?
building it into the routine too, where it's we just know that before dinner, I would say before, not after, in our family at least, for us to be able to sit at the table together, first we have to be regulated. So before
Yes.
dinner, we're going to do all this movement stuff, get those wiggles out, calm our bodies, and then come to dinner. Where it's like you're just building it in a little bit more so it doesn't feel like it's all the time. And it's also then predictable for the families, which I think is really important. Obviously, there are times when it's like, you know what, our body needs this right now. We're just going to
Yep.
do it. But the more you can build it into the routine, and whether it be kiddos with sensory processing differences or not, we all thrive on that. So just
Yeah.
finding ways to embed it is huge.
Love that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about this routine idea. We're going to pause for a second to thank our sponsor, Love Every. As an occupational therapist, I'm often asked when children are truly ready to learn to read. From an OT perspective, readiness is about both acceptance and expectance, two themes we discuss frequently here on the OT is In. Accepting where your child's skills are today, while expecting that growth will come with the right supports in place. The Love Every reading skill set is designed to honor that balance. Through hands-on, developmentally aligned activities, children build foundational skills that support reading readiness, including phonological awareness, visual tracking, oral language, and early writing foundations. Skills are introduced gradually and intentionally, without rushing children before they're ready. And families are supported with a clear progression while children are given the time and space that they need to grow. Learn more about the Love Every reading skill set at loveevery.com. Now, back to the show. Welcome back. Now, Alexi and I are going to dive in a little bit more to what this can look like in the day-to-day life. Because yes, being able to have a space is wonderful, but what about within our day-to-day routines? And one of the things you said, Alexi, that I love was you were talking about that predictability. And I talk a lot about predictability can lead to flexibility, right? When you know things are going to happen, then when other interruptions come in, it's not as big of a deal because you have a general anchor point or rhythm. So, what can that look like in the day, considering our spaces and getting our kiddos their sensory needs met?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's going to work for my family is going to look very different than what's going to work for Sarah's family or for any of yours. And it might change a little bit day to day or week to week or as your kids age. And so it's important just to kind of keep tabs on that, how things are ebbing and flowing.
Yeah.
But I think a really good way of going about it is just having some kind of a visual, right? Whether it be a digital calendar, like a skylight, which we love recommending for families. It could be like a little checklist for the kids, just finding a way, Velcro charts, finding something that can really help them to understand that predictability and when they get to go move their body or the kind of those first thens, right?
Hmm.
Having those can be really helpful as tools and having it where things are just more built in. Similarly to
Hmm.
how we know, okay, you wake up, you brush your teeth, you get ready for the day. Okay, when can we incorporate that? Okay, maybe mornings are really hard, right? And so you wake up, and before we even try to go eat breakfast and brush our teeth, let's do a little bit of that sensory motor work, right? Go do some jumping and crashing from the bed onto the pillows on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Before you make your bed, maybe throw all the pillows on the floor and crash into them 5 times,
What a perfect way to, before
right?
I add in to make my bed, I'm going to make it messier and then do it.
Yeah, where it's just, okay, they've already got all the stuffed animals and everything right
Mhm.
there. Let's just start the day. So trying to find different ways of going about that can be a really great tool to incorporate. And then also just trying to figure out what works for your family, whether it be like a big whiteboard and you've just got like a list going, or just a paper calendar, paper planner, those kinds of things, or doing something that's a little bit more techy, like a skylight calendar or something where you can have your routine color coded and have the checklists, all that beautiful stuff right there.
Love it. Love it. And I love how you mentioned that it's going to change over time because as our kids age, what they need, a lot of people have said, will they grow out of this? And my typical answer to that is no, but they grow into it. Like you start to learn more about your body. You also start to learn more about what meets your specific needs. So when we were younger, me too, but when my kids were younger, our routine had to have specific times built in for movement, but it didn't always look like this jumping and crashing. We would think about anything that was carrying and crawling, pushing or pulling was like the four things I would keep in my head. Like, all right, I can tell my kiddo needs to get up and move to keep his focus going. So what can he do that's pushing, pulling, crawling, or carrying? And that, when you're thinking of it, can be built in so many different ways. Like we would do carry the laundry downstairs, push the vacuum. I often joke my floorboards were really clean for a really long time because he could crawl and wipe a floorboard and crawl and wipe a floorboard. They are no longer that way because that is not necessarily his need. But it has fluctuated over time. But those anchor points or the abilities to come up with this rhythm has been consistent throughout. Now, you talked about aging, right? And I have here too. What about teenagers? Like we can all think about little kids and sure, I can put in this little mini trampoline for my 160-pound teenager. That mini trampoline, that's not going to do a darn thing. So what do you do with the older kiddos?
Absolutely. So here at Sensational Spaces, we work with all age. Our primary demographic is kids, but we've worked up to 74. So we work
Wow, yeah.
across the lifespan. One of the things that I love as an OT, but also we love to recommend, especially for our kind of tweens, teens, and adults, is the education that we have some of the most concentrated proprioceptive receptors actually in our jaw and our mouth. And so you think about if you've got a prop seeker, they might also be somebody who's gravitating toward like jerky or chewing on things, chewing on pens, biting their nails, getting this input in their mouth. And so oftentimes we'll see that you can find different ways to calm and regulate even through that. It doesn't mean you need to go grab a snack every time you're feeling dysregulated, but you might see your teens gravitating toward the kitchen in those moments where they need a little bit of a snack, or you find that if you give them one, they're starting to calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so finding different things, like whether it be they may have aged out of like a Chewy at that point, but even something like a Camelback Eddie water bottle that has that Chewy bite valve.
The water bottle options are unlimited at this point of what water bottle is the coolest right now. But also, if you're thinking about water bottles as in terms of sensory or proprioceptive feedback, like straw versus, what you're going to suck here, and so many different options.
And that even goes back like primitive. I won't get into that, but even like suck, swallow, breathe synchrony and everything. It really truly does tie together with that calming and regulation piece. But so having a water bottle that has that Chewy bite valve is a great tool. Having like right now, even I'm on like I don't know if you see me bouncing every once in a while. I'm on
I am too. This is what my feet are on right now. If anyone's looking, it's a sit disc.
I'm on one of our swooper chairs right now that we love to recommend. They're fabulous, and it's like a wobble stool, but it's more adult, right?
Yeah.
There's different things out there that you can get, whether it be like a weighted blanket or weighted flat pad, or just like weighing down your backpack a little bit more, right? If they're walking around with one anyway and they need that input, just throw a couple extra books in there or something just to give them a little bit more. And finding different ways, again, that you can just embed it very naturally, especially those teens. It's hard because oftentimes they don't want to look different or be perceived as different. And so it can be a really helpful way to just find small things to just embed within.
Yeah, I love the backpack that you mentioned. Like my son now, I literally have a 3 pound, like it was just a flat, it was like an ankle weight, but you can make it flat, and that's inside of his backpack. So when he's carrying it through from spot to spot, there you go. Nobody else knows that it's in there, but it really makes a difference.
Absolutely.
For him. Now you have mentioned a few different like products and things that you do recommend. So It is really tough because I don't want to tell everybody, yes, your kiddo is a sensory seeker, go buy 9 million things. And especially when you mentioned at the beginning, you type the word sensory in with it and the prices skyrocket. So what are some either top equipment that you recommend or places where people can go to say, okay, this is something that will really benefit my kiddo and this is where I can find it?
Yeah, absolutely. So random things around the house even, right? If you have straws from the dollar
Mhm.
store, whether it be the silicone straws that they can chew on too, or it be just a pack of regular plastic straws, which I know are not great for the environment, but are great for oral motor and proprioceptive
Mhm.
input, getting that good suck, swallow, breathe, whether it's like you're drinking a thicker smoothie through it, or you
Yeah.
just have it and you're trying to pick up paper and transfer it, getting that input in that way is a super low tech and cost effective way of doing it. Using your couch cushions you already have, like we talked about, your pillows that you already have. You don't need to go out and, yeah, crash pads are great, but they're huge, right? If you don't
Yeah.
have the space for it, try to think of the things that you already have within your environment that could imitate that. Sometimes we'll even say if you go buy a duvet cover, just a regular old duvet cover for any king or queen size
Yeah.
comforter, right? And you just fill that with all the kids' stuffed animals and pillows and whatever, that's a crash pad. It's
Yeah.
basically the same thing, and it's way more cost effective.
That is beautiful. That's a great idea.
Yeah, we love stuff like that too, or filling up a laundry basket and pushing that
Mhm.
around, or as you get Amazon boxes, let the kids be the ones to carry them in and out. We on our website, we have an equipment ordering page now too, and that everything on there it's been vetted by occupational therapists, it's been vetted by ourselves, and they're things that we very frequently use in spaces. It's hard because if you go on Amazon or
Yeah.
any of these different websites, there's 1,000 different Lycra swings. And half
Mhm.
the time when you get it, it's like the super chintzy material that it feels like it's going to break because it probably is going to break. And it's
Yeah.
hard because it doesn't matter if you spend $100 on it or you spend $20 on it, you don't really know what the quality is you're going to get. And so we always say that when possible, finding a source like our equipment page that it's like somebody's already vetted it and they're actively using them
That's
because
great.
that can be really hard.
So this is a perfect way to actually end. So tell us, how can they find that specific, and I will make sure that equipment page is linked in our
Yeah.
show notes, but how can they find you?
Yeah.
And especially since you are in 20 different states now, and specifically Minnesota as well, and Wisconsin, you said, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So how can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on our website, which is just sensationalspaces.com, and it's SENSEATIONAL spaces.com. So we have it where it's sense, not just the typical spelling of sensational. So that
Yes,
can
you're
be a
so
little bit of
tricky.
a little niche right there. Yeah, fine. And then our email is sensationalspaces@gmail.com. Again, it has that E in there after that S. And we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, not super active, but it's on there. YouTube, all the things. Pretty much any social media platform, we're on them. And if you have any questions, you can email, call, text, anything. We're here to help how we can and just support you guys with getting more regulated in your homes.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to see you.
As we wrap up this conversation, I want to pause for a moment and reflect on why creating what Alexi calls sensational spaces really matters in the day-to-day rhythm of homeschooling. When we begin to understand our children's sensory needs, it changes how we see their behavior, their movement, and even the friction that can show up in our homes. Sometimes the smallest shifts in the environment, like a place to climb or a spot to retreat, a routine that allows movement instead of fighting it, can make a meaningful difference in how smoothly that the day unfolds. By understanding sensory processing is the only first step. The next step is learning how to recognize it in your own child and figuring out how it shows up in your specific home and your specific routines. Now that's exactly why I created the guide, What is Sensory Processing? In it, I walk through the sensory systems in a clear, practical way and help you to start noticing how they influence learning, behavior, and regulation throughout your homeschool day. If today's conversation sparked your curiosity or gave language to things that you've been seeing in your child, that guide is really the perfect next step. And if you reach the point of where you're thinking, I understand this, but I'm not quite sure how to implement it in my home, that's where coaching can be helpful. Coaching with me is conversational and practical. We look at your routines, your space, and your child's need together and work through the solutions that fit your family. So wherever you are in that process, the most important thing to remember is that awareness is powerful. The more we understand about the nervous system and how it works, the more we can shape our homes and our days in ways that support our children and ourselves. I'm Sarah Collins, occupational therapist and homeschool mom. Thanks for listening, for spending some time with me, and for recognizing that you are not doing this alone, because the OT is always in.